I'm King Lincoln. Dynasty Warriors 9 is so meh. There's something I've been struggling with for the last half of 2023, and while Dynasty Warriors 9 is older than that time period, I do think that this game is an example of it. I feel like games have been made to be more disposable, more designed to give you dopamine hits for enjoying it, but also able to shake you off, make you go play the next thing the company produces before long, or design more with microtransactions than quality in mind. Nothing radically improves, and also, especially with sequels, there's this feeling of average games being treated as great milestones because fans really want them, but don't really care about what's in it. But also not in Dynasty Warrior 9's case, oh boy, no. Dynasty Warrior 9 is a perfect example of something much more problematic. It's a sequel that simply isn't as good. A sequel that tried something different and has not found more than a couple of fans, and because of that, it just made me want to go back to where I first fell in love with this series. Here we are. Wait, what's this? This looks somewhat right, but let me see. Oh, let me go farther back. There we are. Yeah, Dynasty Warriors 3. This is the real deal. Dynasty Warrior 3 takes me back to my college days. Someone really was enjoying the game and showed it to me, and instantly I fell in love. So many places to level up, killing tons of soldiers, and then of course this beast of a man that every fan of this series knows, Lu Bu. This is easily the best game to get introduced to him and the entire franchise. It's not the best game in the franchise, but it is a wonderful start. I already feel my nostalgia goggles on my face, but still, this is so much fun. In hindsight, I will admit I wasn't the best judge of games 20 years ago. Yes, this is a 20-year-old title and I feel very old admitting that. Back then I valued playtime over quality, but at the same time there are 42 characters, tons of stages, and almost every character has a unique weapon, and each character has their own Musou mode, which is essentially a story mode. Okay, well, most of them will go over the same stages admittedly. There are 35, not 42 characters, each with 7 stage Musou modes. Technically, the 3 leaders have 10 stages. You know, don't worry about it. I know the nitty gritty, I'm just gonna summarize here. But there are only about 20 stages in the game, and even with 2 sides to each stage, that's about 200 character Musou stage pairings, and only about 40 possible choices for stages, so there's a decent amount of repetition. Really, what I'm saying is you'll play the Wu Zhang playing in the Yellow Turban Rebellion so much, anyone's gonna get sick of it by the end. The combat of the Dynasty Warriors series is simplistic but always makes the player feel powerful. You can just tear through enemies as a general and decimate forces, and yet okay, I get why people don't love this series, but I'd be lying if I didn't say this was one of my favorites for mindless button mashing. I can get away with it here and still enjoy myself. At the same time, talking about how powerful I feel, coming back to the game, I forgot that Dynasty Warrior 3 does have a bit of a bite. There is a good difficulty here that if you rush forward into battle, you can struggle a bit. Lu Bu, as mentioned, is a complete beast, but even just generally, while you can run and attack the enemy commanders straight away, if you don't take your time or are sufficiently leveled up, it's going to be a hard battle, especially if the enemy has a high morale. And I really don't want to go too deep on the intricacies of how the game works. There's fantastic guides on game FAQs that are all about the morale system and much more. There are a ton of very deep systems at play here, and I've learned entirely too much about how this game works, but trust me when I say the system is extremely complex. Replaying Dynasty Warriors 3 also reminds me of why I love the Dynasty Warriors story. Of course, a big part of that is the narrative in this game is based on the Romance of the Three Kingdoms books by Lao Guanchao. I'm sure I'm butchering that name. There's a reason I'm trying not to name drop too many people in this game, but the thing is, as great as that book is, this isn't exactly that story, and that's also something special about Dynasty Warrior 3 for good and bad reasons.
You flaming idiots!
There's so much hammy overacting in this title. There are so many bad line reads. There are characters not designed as they originally were, or extremely flamboyant. Hello Zhang He, one of the first characters I played. But still, there's also a great history explored, and one of my favorite battles here is Chi Bi, especially if you can trigger the fire attack, which changes the stage and gives a real epic feel to this title. This is where I fell in love with the series, and the reason why I'm talking about Dynasty Warriors 3 is that I've owned and played almost every title in the series, as well as the Extreme Legends, some of the Empire titles. Admittedly, I never liked those as much. Samurai Warriors, though, is amazing. Warriors Orochi, Gundam, One Piece Pirate Warriors, Berserk Band of the Hawk, and so many more. I love this franchise. Playing this one again, it's actually brilliant. And we're talking about a 20-year-old video game that may be better than the most recent entry. Yikes, but that's kind of good for the fans. And yeah, there is of course another reason to be talking about this title. This game being such a major title for me meant a lot, especially with it being one of the first ones that brought me into the franchise. Well, of course, this is why we're talking about it. So after finishing Dolphin for the Atari 2600 on Retroachievements, which is a 40-year-old title by the way, I decided to tackle this beast of a game. I've gone from one of the most simple arcade-style games on the earliest console, released 40 years ago, to this beast of a game on the most recent system supported. For now. No further comment on that. But I can say I had a ton of fun working on this title. There's a ton of learning about how Dynasty Warriors works and what tricks and features could be used on the PS2, and honestly there's one problem I have with Dynasty Warriors 3, or really two problems. The first is simple. The programmers for this game were dirty, and by that I mean they would often leave memory in whatever state it was last in until that memory is used again. There's so many achievements that would be easy to do, except when you switch from one stage to the next, the entire memory footprint is the same as the last level, so it's not completely obvious what's going on. There's a lot of ways around that, but man, it made stuff much more complicated than it should, but that wouldn't be a big problem though. The other big problem was in this game, players are able to do a quick reset by hitting the start and select button, and combining these two issues meant memory was left in a dirty state as if you're in a level, as players return to the main menu, so there's all sorts of edge cases where players were doing one thing and quickly resetted and moved to a different mode or slipped into the demo and stuff was set up incorrectly. It's super annoying, but I'm glad that I got through that. But the good news here though is there's a ton of achievements in this game. 213 achievements, 94 leaderboards, there's an achievement for unlocking each character, finishing each Musou mode, and so on. In the Warrior series, there are unique final weapons as well as rare items. Both have unique unlocking processes, and all of those get achievements here. Each character can beat all 7 stages of the Musou mode on hard difficulty to get a special achievement, and then I made a special challenge for each stage that you have to beat it without using the in-game save system, which can be abused quite liberally here and probably should for some of these characters, but doing that gets you another special achievement. I also added in special achievements for most of the bonus characters, giving them a little additional tale or reason. Apologies to Yan Shao, I couldn't think of anything other than his special weapon requirements, or playing the Yellow Turban Rebellion for the millionth time. I wasn't going to force anyone to do that again. So like I said, there's a huge quantity of content here, and almost all of it is covered in this set. In about a month that it's been out, this achievement set has only had 3 masteries so far. I'm sorry it's taken so long to get this video out. The humble and the flu actually had me a little out of commission. Dynasty Warriors 3 has been a huge undertaking. I honestly feel great about this achievement set. I feel like it properly tries to honor one of the most important games in my past, and if you ever liked any of the Warrior series, you should probably check this title out, and if you want to check out the achievements, you can log on to Retroachievements with the most recent version of PCSX2 and chip away at this list. I'll put a download link down below. If somehow this was your least favorite version of the Warrior series, there's also a Dynasty Warriors 5 set out as well that includes the Extreme Legends mode. There's the original Dynasty Warrior title, which is a fighting game, and if you like that one, I know at least one more Dynasty Warriors game is coming out soon. Oh, and Samurai Warriors Extreme Legends has over 500 leaderboards. I'm sure that's not related to anything at all. But really, you should check out Dynasty Warriors 3, or 5, or 9. Or none of them if you want. But more importantly, think about the past a little more when playing games. If a new game isn't living up to the legacy of the company that puts it out, it probably means you should go replay the original games from that developer rather than chasing those old nostalgic feelings with weaker titles and paying full price for those experiences. I actually spent about 300 hours working on this title and the achievement set, mostly testing. Honestly, almost completely testing, but I also had so much fun revisiting this, whether it's just the great gameplay of this game or complete nostalgia goggles. Though, as I worked on this video, I've been thinking about how I want to handle these videos going forth. I do like talking about these games when they're good. Then again, I did an achievement set for Oink, which is on the screen now, and I really don't have much to say about this game. It's another early Activision game that had an official badge back in the day. The gameplay is extremely simple, and I did a set for it. That's about all I have to say about it. It's fun. Go check it out. I have a feeling we'll probably do a rapid-fire retro review in the future and talk about a couple of games at a time. However, I do have 2 more important videos planned. There will be one at the end of this month, a launch trailer if you will, for my achievement sets, and a good theme between them. The controller is shown for obvious foreshadowing, and something else rather big happened, but I do want to take time to talk about that in a lot more depth, so probably next month. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion and either remember a game you've played once or have a new game to check out. On the other hand, if you think there's better choices of my time and effort, feel free to leave a comment about what retro games deserve a great achievement set or what old retro games really need to be checked out by more people. I'll be popping up my video on Dolphin as well as letting YouTube suggest something to you, but for now I thank you very much for watching and I'll see you next time.